Hey everyone, my name is Jen O'Sullivan and this is a long-awaited video for many of you. It's been a question that comes up all the time because we have dealt with trying to figure out what does compliance mean? What is FDA compliance? How do we navigate when we've used a product not intended as a drug and it works, right? I laugh because when I was in college, I used to play around with this. One of my assignments in one of my graphic design classes was, you know, how can you take a product that is meant for one thing and use it some way, you know, different way. And I remember what was super fun was I used Pepto-Bismol, you know, and that's for like your upset stomach, and I used it for your face. So in the shower, like face wash, and it like helps clear up your acne. And so we always joked that like you could find any number of products that will do another thing, right? It's like the My Big Fat Greek Wedding where they talk about Windex and just put it on everything, you know, you got to scrape Windex it. And it's like, okay, well that's not its intended use. Okay, so Windex couldn't say that, right? Windex could never claim, like, yeah, take Windex and spray it on your arm to heal that nasty cut, you know, or whatever. I mean, they would never get away with that because that's not its intended use. So the question though is, okay, first off, is FDA compliance a good thing? Are they trying to take away your First Amendment rights, or are they trying to handcuff you, so to speak? I'm going to tell you emphatically no. They're actually here to protect you. They're actually here to help get your product into more people's hands safely. The problem with it is, and I use this example all the time, is that you might have a headache, and I might have a headache, and I could use I don't know, ibuprofen, and you could use ibuprofen, and we'd have probably similar results just because of the way that pharmaceutical drug is meant to work. When it comes to an essential oil though, we know that peppermint has a very cooling sensation when you put it on your body topically. So I might feel, oh, that feels so good, and like it just feels so good and it has helped. So you might say, well, what could I do because I don't really want to take ibuprofen? And I would say, well, take some peppermint, right? It's amazing and it works for headaches, right? This would be a potential bad, non-compliant FDA claim, right? I've just taken something that's considered topical use, something that's considered like basically they consider it a cosmetic, and I've told you that it works like a drug. Okay, so that's an example of non-compliance. Well, what's the problem, right? Well, the girl that I just told her it works, I mean, for real, she could die. And I'm going to say this in a really big way here. Let's say she drank like 20 cups of coffee and she was having like a severe migraine, and you didn't know that, and you just thought, well, it worked for me because I just had a little tension headache. And she now has like this crazy migraine and she's spinning out of control, and you give her peppermint and she dies because she's like, I don't know, I know this would never happen, but like her head explodes. Let's just say like too much caffeine, right? Okay, that would never happen, but just, you know, humor me here. If understanding that, if you went to court with her family, I'm going to tell you something, her family would win because she should have gone to the hospital, but instead you advised her to use peppermint essential oil. You see where I'm going with this? I mean, I know that's an extreme, ludicrous example, but I need to do that for you guys so you understand that even on something simple like a headache, you have no clue why they have that headache, and you're not a doctor, and for you to claim a medical help on something that is potentially not something you can treat with that is a big deal. And so the FDA gives us really important guidelines, okay? So the question then comes into play, how do companies, there's so many of them, I'm not even going to name names here, but it's pretty much everyone, other than I know Young Living is probably the biggest contender when it comes to compliance because several years ago they and another big company got hit up with a FDA letter that basically just was a warning, and it wasn't a lawsuit or anything, it was just a warning stating, you know, you guys need to tighten your ship. You and your distributors are making medical claims. You're making drug claims on non-drug items, okay? So it, you know, I will say Young Living is the only company that actually complied, and they tightened the ship really tight. If you go on the other companies, distributor websites, they're still completely non-compliant, and here's why. Again, this is why people are asking, like, why is this able to happen? And why on every single essential oil website that you go on, any major one, I mean, you can go on pretty much, you guys see my top 17 brands that I've tested. You guys could go on all of their websites and their blogs, and you will find very non-compliant information. You will find stuff that talks about essential oils as a drug. That you cannot do. Okay, how? Why? How did they get away with this? Realistically, when you're understanding an essential oil, I don't have any next to me here, but when you're understanding an essential oil, the word essential oil is not regulated by the FDA. Aromatherapy is, because it has the word therapy in it, and they would put that potentially in a drug category, but potentially not. It's dependent on what the intended use is for. So, like Young Living has over-the-counter drug claims for like cough drops, and we're able to make those claims because we have gone through rigorous making sure that we followed to a T the FDA guidelines for labeling, and they, the whole thing has to be like done correctly. You can't just willy-nilly claim something as a drug. So the term essential oil is not regulated. The term aromatherapy sort of is, because they would say, well, aromatherapy is more of a drug claim because you're saying therapy. But it's what its intended use is for. So basically, I'm going to tell you in a nutshell, there's 3 elements at play here as to why companies can get away with non-compliant verbiage. Number 1, it might be compliant, and what that means is the terms they're using is because it's not an essential. They're not labeling it as an essential oil. They're labeling it as a supplement, a dietary supplement. Okay, so totally 2 different things. You have to remember that if you're talking about an essential oil from a topical or aromatic perspective, it now falls under the jurisdiction of a cosmetic. And a cosmetic, you cannot make any structure function claims. You cannot make any like medicinal claims. You can't make any like lice claims. Like literally all of the posts that we talk about lice and stuff like that, technically they're all non-FDA compliant, and they will be coming down, or they'll be changed. The verbiage will be changed. It's not lice, it's called, like I look at it from a pheromone changing perspective. So how does that work? And we're going to get into that a little bit deeper. So that, talking about lice prevention is completely non-compliant. So that's, really important to understand. So that is one area. And so if now you take a company that maybe sells only consumable oils, meaning they're all dietary supplements, could they then get away with making structure function claims? Yes and no. Again, it depends on the intended use and if they've followed the guidelines to a T. But generally speaking, it has to go through a crazy amount of like rigmarole to even be considered labeled as a drug. Now you can label it as a dietary supplement. You just can't label it dietary supplement, aromatic and topical all in one. So you see like one of our major competitors labels them all in one, and it's simply because they just have decided not to comply, right? So the question is, well, how are they getting away with that? So again, that first thing is, what is it? The second thing is either they're knowingly disregarding the law, which in some companies' cases, I would say that's very true. They're knowingly disregarding it simply because, who knows why? I mean, they're knowingly disregarding it because we know what letters have been sent out, right, to those companies. However, more commonly is the case, they don't understand the full, and I'm going to use a word that I use all the time, but they don't understand the full depth and breadth of the law, okay? So they don't fully understand. So if you look at any of like the new essential oil companies, even essential oil companies that have been around 8-9 years, they may not fully understand the depth and breadth of the law when it comes to, the FDA. We have been dealing with this re-verbiage for about 2 years now, and understanding the reverbiage, even still, people are like, what? Wait, we can't say that? Okay, and we're still learning, okay? So this is very important to understand that, honestly, if you take somebody, a new company, they're not studying the FDA. They're generally understanding, sort of, but they don't know the really true deep reality of like lice, right? I mean, the deep reality of like muscle support, you know, or saying, like I just read a blog post from a very popular brand, and they're based here in California, and you know, they're talking about illness and how this new blend that they have is going to help. It's basically, they don't say it, but they use the term illness, and it's implied, and even implying helping with your immune system on a topical or aromatic oil. And this company does not have any internal use oils, is an FDA regulation. They're out of FDA compliance. So again, I spoke with 2 different FDA representatives about this, and they said they just probably don't know. That would be number one. Number one is they know, and they're not caring, right? Number 2 is that they probably don't know. The thing is, though, is even if they do know or they don't know, they're still non-compliant. So the question is, well, then how are they getting away with it? And the answer that I know is true, and then I verified with 2 FDA representatives, is they don't have the manpower to go after them. They're going to go after the people who are the largest, because it's a good trickle-down, you know, theology of working. If you go after the biggest companies in the market, and you tighten the ship on them, it should create a trickle-down effect. Oftentimes it doesn't, and in the case of this, it hasn't, because we see non-compliance everywhere, and it's very frustrating. However, I want to continue to encourage you guys to not be frustrated. It is far better for you to speak compliantly than non-compliantly. And some of you guys get on my case about some gray areas, and I agree. I am still learning. I want to be compliant. I want to look at things like even the whole, like I just told my app developer, take out the term lice. Apparently, you know, that can't be used. And I'm going to tell you where I found this. Again, it's like constantly trying to dig deeper into the depth and breadth of compliance. No company has the time to do this. However, if you get a letter from the FDA, you make time. And that's why Young Living has made a lot of time. And there's an entire department now dedicated to compliance, okay? And it's a very cool thing, because it's basically helping educate us and helping protect us from liability, okay? So the thing, though, that people don't understand is, okay, well then what, if all these people are being non-compliant, if everybody is being non-compliant, but we're the only company being fully compliant, because technically we are. We're the only company I know of that's being as compliant as possible. The thing is that the FDA simply doesn't have the manpower to go after companies at all, and they look at jurisdiction. And this is something that I learned that was interesting. One of the things to understand is, let's say you have a commercial, and the commercial, you know, we were joking last night because there was a commercial for like an anti-anxiety thing or anti-depression, and you know, I go, watch this, Tim, they're gonna list suicidal tendency, like you might end up committing suicide, be careful. And he was like, what? And he was like, wait, why is it so long? The commercial itself was like 10 seconds long, and then it was literally about 60 seconds of potential side effects. And I'm like, yep. Like, it's really crazy. However, what happens is when, let's say, a medical drug gets passed through the FDA, and then they start advertising, and they start stepping over bounds a little bit, meaning they start advertising something that maybe isn't exactly, it's a little deceptive, right? Like that this will help you no longer be depressed, right? Like you can't give some emphatic statement like that. Or what if they are saying this, and they're saying, you know, it might cause suicidal tendencies, but now like 30 people have been reported to actually commit suicide after taking this drug. Now that's not that many people in the grand scheme of things, but it's enough to do this one thing. And this is what I learned that was very interesting to me about how the FDA works, because the question always comes back to, well, if so-and-so is being so non-compliant and he's getting away with it, how, why? You know, why is the FDA not going after him? Because he's a very well-known person in the industry, right? This is how our brains work. Well, number one, yeah, to us, people are big, but to the FDA, it's like, seriously? They look at the aromatherapy world as like, oh, As long as no one's dying, we don't have time for that. So we're going to just focus on the stuff that is problematic, like these people who are dying from suicide, So they're really looking at, what's the loudest whistle. So the only way would be if, and I would never recommend this, would be if all of you contacted them and started complaining about the non-compliance of all these different companies, right? I mean, it would be ridiculous. So the thing is, what they shared with me is that if somebody's making a crazy claim and it's harmful, meaning it's a life-threatening or harmful situation, they actually, in advertising, meaning, because that's what it is, we're talking about people advertising, all of us advertising these claims, they go through the Federal Trade Commission. And so they go through the FTC. They work together with the FTC. The FDA itself is not the ones that will actually legally go after someone. They might send you a letter of non-compliance, but if you don't comply, they then pair up with the Federal Trade Commission to actually go after people. And that's where, if you go on the Federal Trade Commission, I typed in essential oils and aromatherapy, and nothing was coming up until one thing came up, and it was about lice. And it was very interesting, and I encourage you all to go on there and read it, because it helps you understand, because you're thinking, whoa, wait a minute, what that company said seemed kind of benign, like this help, it was something like may help prevent lice, right? Or whatever. It was in a very kind of benign thing, but they lost and had to pay like $55,000 or something like that. And that's serious. When I see that, I think, okay, we need to really consider our language and understand that I'm not a company, but I'm a representative of a company. And so that's why our company takes it so serious, because we are the biggest company in the world. Other companies will claim that, but their numbers are not proof. Like, our numbers prove that we're the largest company. And so our company is going to take really great lengths to help stay a company. Because what happens is if enough people, think about this too. You guys saw I was recently like the I don't know what you would call it, but I get these witch hunts after me all the time, where like I'll state something and everybody goes nuts, and then they start thinking they can somehow like shut me down. It's just a difference of opinion. However, the more you have to lose, the more you're going to protect your rock, right? Your little rock that you're standing on. And so, you look at a company like Young Living, and you've got a lot of jealousy, a lot of people who do not like Gary Young because they feel, for whatever reason, he's, who knows? There's so many random malicious things said about him. And just from my perspective, being a very small person in this industry, it's interesting to see the funny lies that have been spread about me. Like actual lies, like that are so weird and from left field that I think, my followers would kind of have to laugh at that, because they don't even know what they're talking about. Like, I've been told that I've never, ever will tell people that if you're pregnant, don't ever use essential oils. They'll say that I've actually said that. And I'm like, I've never said that, ever. We talk about pregnancy and essential oils all the time, and safe practices, and how essential oils are great to use while pregnant, and it's like these kind of misunderstandings that people say. I've had some very weird rumors spread about me, and I won't even say them here because they're almost too like, ooh, that's very weird, but it's laughable, right? And so I start to think about Gary Young and all of the malicious things that have been said about him. And if you ever meet that man, and I've met him several times, and you're just like, dude, nothing but love for that guy. Whatever we agree on or disagree on, whatever, but he is a genuine, authentic leader of this essential oil world. And so, you have to chalk it up to, he's ginormous, right? He's like huge. And you're going to go after the biggest target, right? So that's something to be aware of. And when you start looking at compliance and trying to make sure that you are not like, right? You don't want to be like, why does he get to say that stuff and I don't? That's the bad perspective to have. It's you're being more healthful. You're being more helpful to the health and well-being of your people. And so I want to continue this conversation with you guys. I want to continue down the road of compliance. I've been asked by several leaders above me in Young Living to not talk about compliance. However, I feel like it's not talked about enough. And I think we need to understand that it is not about your hands being tied. It is not about, well, why does he get to say that and I don't? It's that he shouldn't be saying that, or she shouldn't be saying that, or that company should not be saying that. It's not about turning people in and whistleblowing. I think that that's a very, very poor place to live. I think that as long as we know that there's safe practices, and we know from an educational standpoint that essential oils or aromatherapy do have therapeutic effects, and to how we can actually help direct people to an educational perspective. Any of the schools, like the School for Aromatic Studies, she's not selling oils. And so because she's not selling oils, she can talk non-compliantly about them. However, as an aromatherapist, when she's working with a client, right, when an aromatherapist is working with an actual client, they have to be fully compliant too. And I think there's a big misunderstanding about that they think, oh, well, if you're a certified aromatherapist, you can be non-compliant. People also think if you're a doctor, you can be non-compliant. You can't, you guys. Just know, just because you're a doctor does not mean you can be non-compliant about essential oils, because it goes back to what its intended use is for. And so the FDA, again, read up on it. They don't regulate essential oils. They regulate drugs. They will regulate if it's, what its intended use is for. And it's an amazing thing how Young Living has gotten several things passed through to be over-the-counter drugs. And that's a big deal. And so as we're moving forward, I think the more studies that are shown, and as you do some education, like I know that the School for Aromatic Studies is doing a discounted thing on some of their classes right now. So you can head over to Ignite Academy and see what's in there. If you're watching the replay, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can go over to facebook.com/groups/Ignite Academy. And there's education in there, it's not education. The group itself is not education. It actually helps you see what classes you can take in aromatherapy to understand that even in their books and the things that you're reading, it always says, like, this is for educational purposes only. This is not intended to diagnose, cure, treat, or prevent any illness or disease. But when you look at the therapeutic qualities of some of the essential oils as they're used, you can start making your own educated decisions on how you personally want to use them. However, claiming to someone else, going back to that headache analogy, and I want everybody to watch the replay if you can to understand that headache analogy is very important for you to understand when it comes to compliance, okay? So, in a nutshell, how and why can somebody be non-compliant about essential oils? They can't, and they shouldn't be. The reason that they're doing it is either from ignorance or because they knowingly are just doing it. And why are they getting away with it is because the FDA does not have the ability to regulate them. And if they are not in their jurisdiction, and this is very important to remember, if, let's say, their website is based out of Canada, the FDA has no way to help claim them, right? So like if there's a United States company that's based out of Canada, but they sell to the United States, and Canada has a completely different set of regulations. However, if like you're buying, they're different. It's different jurisdictions and different laws. And so just know that the FDA isn't sitting around trying to ding small town essential oil companies, which there are thousands, okay? So I hope you start digging deeper a little bit into compliance and understanding that it's a good thing, that it's not meant to be bad. It's meant to help us, okay? So watch the replay if you can. If you have questions, ask it in the comments, and I will try to answer. Tag me if you can. If you're on YouTube, I usually see those and can actually get back to you pretty quickly. And so I hope that this will help, and we'll talk soon. All right, bye.